Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about this project. It's been quite a journey to get to this point. As Mark said, we came to Lancaster, I guess about 9 years ago, 9 or 10, about almost 10 years ago. When I joined Zamagias Properties, the first thing Michael Zamagias said to me was, you need to go visit this city. I've been there, I feel something, my tummy tells me there's something there. And if you've ever met Michael Zamagias, he's probably one of the most intuitive business people I've ever met. He can smell a deal and know exactly how to put it together. And then he has people like me verify that what he's thinking is true. So I came here and we started looking around, and really were surprised by the vitality of the city, even 10 years ago. It's come a long way since then. We did our first project, which was, we called Water Street, but it's Steepleview Lofts. Land as homes, leased out all the apartments. And that kind of got us going. Second project was the Keppel Building on Queen. A little bigger project, same kind of model, apartments with commercial on the ground floors, mixed use property. But all the while we were driving around town looking at different situations, different opportunities. There was this big, ugly brown building right in the center of the city, and it had a for sale sign on it. And it wasn't long after we came here that we started exploring what was going on with this building. And what we found out was that it was mired in a morass of legal and foreclosure proceedings. You had an owner who defaulted on the loan got sold to a private equity group and a big pool of loans. The private equity group tried to foreclose. Another lender got in the way, saying they have a claim on some tenant improvements. And so the thing just was stuck. Nobody was willing to take the hit, so to speak, because the building as it wasn't worth a whole lot of money. Required a tremendous amount of work, as you're witnessing now. So we made several offers on this building over a period of years to try to unlock it, and could never have the primary equity owner get over the hurdles that were in front of it. And it wasn't until the city began to take action and basically start to say, listen, if you guys can't bring this to market, we're just going to take it by eminent domain. And Randy Patterson and Mayor Gray began to go through the process. The owners figured out that it's time for them to move, and they decided to put it up for auction. And I'll tell you a brief story about that, and we'll run through some of these slides because it gives some of the history. So they put it up on this auction site called auction.com, which has since changed its name, but basically it's like an eBay for buildings. So we'd done a lot of work on the concept of what we thought might work. Maybe we were a step ahead of the rest of the folks looking at it. We had a contractor lined up, and we'd run numbers on it. I think we had one advantage, which was we had one number that nobody else had, which was how much asbestos abatement there was going to be. Basically, the whole building was full of asbestos, all the fireproofing, everything else. That was a chore to get that out. So imagine we've got 5 people sitting around a computer screen. The clock is counting down, and the bids are going up. And Michael Zamagias is in London. He's got another business, and he had some offices out there that he's working on. He's in a cab calling me, what's going on? Tracy Horst, who was working with us and still is working with us, is on the phone with the auctioneer as kind of our representative. So the auctioneer is going to Tracy, are they still in? And we're still in at this point. Michael's going, well, where are we? And this went on for about an hour. And what's different about this auction site is when the bid comes down, if it's within the last 3 minutes and somebody wins the bid, the clock automatically resets to 3 minutes. So you can imagine the clock's going down 10, 9, 8, somebody throws a number in, they're now the winning bidder, the clock goes back up to 3 minutes, and we start the process over. So it got down to 2 or 3 people left. Michael calls me, and we were at our limit, and I said, I think we should keep going. And he said, okay, we'll go a little more, 1 or 2 more rounds, and it was $50,000 a round at that point. And we ended up winning, which was both a wonderful feeling and oh my gosh, what have we done kind of feeling. But we really, at that point, I think we'd fully bought into the city of Lancaster. We saw things here that maybe not everybody in this room was ready to acknowledge, and saw the potential, saw the vibrancy. And I'd been to 7 or 8 other cities, a little smaller, some bigger than Lancaster, looking for places for us to invest. And honestly, none of the others matched up in terms of all of the aspects of Lancaster and everything that the city has to offer. So we were very pro on the city, and we took a bit of a risk, and I'll describe some of that as I go through this. But that's kind of the history of how we got to owning the building. It was convoluted and exciting, and gave us the opportunity to do what we're doing. So in reality, this all started 1968, 67, when the city basically went in, demolished this block, along with the block adjacent to it, to create this new. So this is some of the history, and I'm going to ad-lib a bit of this because this is a slideshow we did a while ago. But this is what it used to be like, back before they did the brutalist architecture that ended up 1970-ish. So this was the vision. Some of you probably remember this. Queen Street basically ran through this thing. What was the Brunswick turned into the Hilton, which turned into, I think, the Brunswick again, and then the Hotel Lancaster, and now the Holiday Inn. And the vision was there, but the reality was, I think Park Mall opened up just about the same time. And so as a result, 3 years later, they're demolishing what they spent. I don't know how much. They probably spent the equivalent of well over $100 million on this in today's dollars. Started taking it down, but you can see what was the Boulevard building. We've rebranded it now because we don't want that word to be spoken anymore. But this is some of the history, and this is where we ended up when we bought it. Looks a lot different today now. So when we bought this thing, we kind of had a feel for what would work and what wouldn't work. We knew retail on the ground floor would work all day long. We were a little uncertain about the office demand because space like this just hadn't been put on the market before inside the city. You see this kind of office space in the suburbs, but not in the city. And on the top floor, we didn't want to take on too much office, so we decided to do condos. We knew that downtown living was really on the upswing, and we decided let's see if we can create some really nice residences on the top floor. So we kind of divided the building up to hopefully bite-sized chunks that we could digest. When we got into this thing, we knew we were going to need subsidies and tax credits to put this together. Unfortunately, Community First Fund and Commonwealth Cornerstone Group out of Harrisburg, part of PHFA, stepped up. They helped out, the city helped out with some CRIZ money to help us offset some of the asbestos abatement. And that helped put this whole thing together. So that's, oops, let me go back. This was the vision we had before we started building it. And I'd say we stayed pretty close to that vision in terms of what it's turning out to be. A couple little changes, but you can see on the top floor we've got the huge balconies and the glass for the luxury condos, office, and then retail on the ground floor. And so far everything's gone quite well. We've had some hiccups along the way. These are our other 2 projects. So I want to just talk about how we split this thing up and some of the evolution that's gone on. In some cases we stuck to what we had. So this is the ground floor. The pinkish is parking for the condos up on top. Light green are retail spaces. And this has stayed pretty true to form. Some of the walls have moved around, but we're about, I'd say, on the retail, about 65% leased overall. And I can point to you real quick. This is going to be a women's spa. This is a specialty furniture store, Starbucks, men's clothing, People's Bank. This space we're kind of holding off for now because we want to put a really cool restaurant in there. Talking to a retailer for this space. Sprint, and then we've got a fast casual restaurant to go in that spot. So it's come together. And one thing that is challenging is to get people to step up before something's built. Because they have to visualize what it's going to be like, and they have to get in early on. So particularly in a city like this, it's harder to do. And when I get to this floor here, actually, third floor, getting there. This was probably the linchpin to us getting this deal done. Well, it doesn't say on this diagram here, all that blue is Cargus. Chip Cargus stepped up and he committed to the project early on, before we even got our financing in place. In fact, without Chip and Cargus stepping up, we would not have gotten the financing in place. The banks really needed to see a commitment by an anchor tenant. So Cargus became an anchor tenant, and I give Chip a tremendous amount of credit for taking the leap of faith, so to speak, to come on board and work with us on this deal. Chip's like a lot of you. He believes in the city, and he knew how important this commitment was. He's a tough negotiator, but we came to a deal that worked for everybody. So he's got the biggest sign on the building. That was part of the deal. So when you see the new renderings, you'll see Cargus on the side. And as you're coming up Queen Street, you'll see Cargus. And as you're sitting in the square, you'll see Cargus. So, so that was a huge, huge component of putting this together. It was having the local nonprofit sponsorship with Community First Fund, having Chip and Cargus step up and take this space, having the city step up and work with us on the approval process. This would not have happened without any of those kinds of contributions by us and by the people in the city. On the second floor, I'll even go down one. It's a 20-foot ceiling, so we can actually build more floor, which we've done. As probably most of you are aware, we just announced another anchor tenant. LNP is going to be moving in. And they're going to be taking almost all the second floor, most of the second floor. That was another really, really huge deal for us in moving this thing along. We're just super excited about that. And all of a sudden, this building has become kind of a, like a headquarters building for some of the key companies in the city. And it's another instance of where you've got a company that's been here forever, 225 years. I think the odds are 1 billion to 1 that a company lasts that long. Stepped up and said, we like what's going on, we want to be part of what's happening in the city, and we want to help sponsor it. So tremendous lease for us. And through that process, what's happened is these apartments you see have kind of gone away. We've substituted the office for the apartment. So that's kind of an evolution that has happened from the original concept to where we are today. And it's based on demand, and it's because we didn't know how much office demand there was going to be. We didn't know who was going to step up. And we are super excited about where we are at this point. So on the top floor, we've got luxury condos. Again, we're kind of setting a new bar, so to speak. You had the Magnolia Place go up. We saw the success of that. We saw the success of the residential apartments that we've been building. We saw the press building get underway. There's another smaller condo project on Mulberry that happened. We just saw this desire to want to be downtown, and it's understandable. This is a special little city in terms of the restaurants, the art galleries, the shops, the variety of things that you can do, the shows, First Fridays, all the festivals that go on. I mean, it's unique. I can tell you that. You may not all understand that, but it doesn't happen everywhere. And we saw that going on, and we saw this general trend nationwide about people wanting to be in walking urban environments. And honestly, it doesn't get much better than what's here in the city. So we took a bit of a leap and decided to build these high-end condos, luxury condos. And we are now building them out. We've got about 35%, 40% under contract. So far, we're very pleased with how this has gone. This is another one of those things where it's hard to sell on paper. A lot of people can't visualize. They got to walk up, touch it, feel it, walk through it, see what the space feels like. And so that's the stage we're at right now. So these are some of the other slides that we had when we did our presentation. The other thing I think we did was we tried to create a comprehensive vision, not just for the building, but for the whole block and the whole square. And so we went out independently and we hired a couple of architecture firms, national firms, to come in and provide us, in fact, RGS put one together too, provide us with a vision for what this could be like. You need a picture to sell this. And when people saw this, all of a sudden their eyes opened up and said, oh, this is what it can be like. We can create this new city center, which is what they were trying to do in the late 60s with the brutalist architecture thing they had going on. So part of what we had to achieve was not only getting the building in control, but we had to create a vision, because this vision requires tremendous investment by the city. Fortunately, there's the CRIZ, and the building that we're doing is going to generate a lot of CRIZ proceeds, and that's going to help offset some of this cost. But tremendous credit for the city for staying with this, putting it together. So we showed people a couple different visions and really tried to set the stage for how that was going to be put together. These are just some of the people we had associated with it. Again, the closing slide. So it's been a journey. It's been a journey not without its ups and downs and stressful moments. But where we are right now with the leases we have in place and the construction progress and status, the city's investment in the square and the new parking garage, this is turning out as good or even better than we ever thought it would be. So we're super excited about this project and really appreciate all the help that we've gotten along the way, particularly by some people in this room and other people in the city. So that's it. Yeah, that's fine.
Hi, we're neighbors to you, of yours rather. When are you planning on opening downtown?
So Cargus is going to move in probably end of September. They'll start moving their stuff in. I'd say the building will open for occupancy sometime in October. There will still be work going on. LNP probably won't move in until February, given the size of that deal. There'll still be some spaces that'll end up with some work going on probably for the next 8 to 12 months, just in base where we are.
And the retail stores down below, what are they going to be?
So the folks that are under lease right now, they'll open up at the same time as the building. So Starbucks, furniture store, the spa, the fast casual restaurant, those will all, the men's clothing store, those will all be open. Some will open up just a little later than that. People's Bank, probably, Sprint, and then the 1 or 2 spaces that we're holding off will open up after that.
Or there's going to be an Italian market?
Yes, that's the fast casual restaurant. It's Italian poke restaurant.
We're looking forward to it. Thank you.
David, thanks for the presentation. How much, a simple question is, how much are you on the hook, your company on the hook in this investment? I heard about how much money is coming from CRIZ and everything else. What's the investment of your company in this project?
In terms of dollar amount?
Dollars, yeah, dollars.
I would say dollar amount. We're probably, in terms of cash in the deal, probably close to 25%, 20 to 25%. We're also fully guaranteeing all of the loan during the construction period. And we also have to comply with the tax credit requirements, which if they were to be, have to be unwound for whatever reason, which is highly unlikely, we'd have to do something pretty dramatic for that to happen. But that's $7 million right there. So we're well into this in terms of risk, very much into the risk piece of this.
Just a question, I'm always looking at what's next, as I'm sure Michael is. As part of the LNP transaction, it was reported that you acquired 2 buildings on King Street as well?
So LNP came to us as part of this deal and said, you know, we're in these 4 buildings on West King, the Steinman buildings, and we don't really have a desire to want to continue to own these. We'd like you to buy them from us. So we are under agreement right now to acquire those buildings. We're currently doing due diligence. We're looking at a couple different options, but one that we're focusing in on right now is a mixed-use project, which would have retain some of the commercial space like HTC is in there. We're talking to them about staying in the building. Some other tenants, Lancaster Community Foundation, County Community Foundation. But there's 2 avenues we explore. One would be market rate apartments, and the other would be boutique hotel.
Hi, thank you for coming today. I had a question, because you take CRIZ money and other public money, do you have to do prevailing wage?
So yes, the way the CRIZ worked was it was actually a grant, and it was a separate, we did a separate contract for the asbestos abatement, and that was done under prevailing wage. So yes, the CRIZ did require prevailing wage, and we did a separate contract just to utilize the CRIZ money. So we don't have, this project doesn't have any ongoing CRIZ revenue coming to it. All future CRIZ revenue generated by this project, and we basically said, you know, put that towards the square in the garage.
Thank you for your presentation. I live in that block at Steeple House Square, which is directly behind as you're looking east on Orange Street. With all the changes that are taking place in Lancaster Square, now called Lancaster Square, how are you cooperating with the development of the parking garage and the library proposed and all of that sort of stuff? I mean, it's a completely separate property as I understand it. Does your interest just stop with the edge of your building?
Technically, yes, our interest stops at the edge of our building. We have a, excuse me, we have a permanent easement over the square for access to our main lobby, which is accessed off the square. We also, as part of that, we have some restaurant seating adjacent to our building, about 20 feet out for people to, you know, have restaurant food outside, you know, in the square. We participate in discussions related to the square and the garage. We provided input, but really those are being run by the city.